a recognition of a lot of those things. So I'm quite proud of it and excited. Family's coming back in town, and it's a great opportunity to get everybody together and kind of think back about the last 20 years and what's kind of transpired.
For you, when you go back and you think about your time at Syracuse, what, or I know we've talked about like different memories over time, but what sticks out? Like when you come onto campus now, it's 2022, you walk onto campus today. What is that first memory when your foot hits the turf of the dome?
It's home. It's strange, we had such a great time here and made such long and binding friendships that last to this day, and it feels like home when you come back here. And the years we were here, we had some pretty dynamic teams, had a lot of fun. I think there was a lot of excitement, around the town, much like there is today about the football team, and probably even more so today. But we had it was a special experience for me, and it's always fun to come back.
So you come back now, you see this dome that is going through a renovation, right? It's not the Carrier Dome, it's the JMA Wireless Dome now.
Still getting used to that.
There's what looks like a roller coaster rail that goes around the top of the dome now. You go inside, you look up, there's that open piece to it. They can make it look like night during the day during the night in the dome. They can change up the lights. There's that massive video sound system in the middle now. How do you take all of that in that you didn't have when you were in the dome?
It's interesting. We were promised when we came in. You think about the school and the recruiting classes, and we had parade All-Americans, and I remember being promised new lockers, right? Which never happened, by the way, while we were here. Even though playing in BCS bowl games and everything, but Syracuse was always a unique school, private school from a funding situation. But what I think about is I think about John Wildhack, and I became very friendly with him. And just the vision and what they've done, and I think for some time maybe you weren't so proud of the football program, or the dome was dated. You look at that dome now at night and some of these pictures, and it's unique. I mean, people get excited about it. I get excited about seeing it. People want to be a part of it. So it's it's fun to see it coming back.
When you were playing and the teams that you had, we were so spoiled. I was spoiled as a kid growing up because, you and I have talked about this before, by far, and there's some good ones, right? Tony Fiametta's come through here, and, written down as a fullback, Tom Coughlin, right? And so there's been some incredible guys that have come through in the backfield and in fullback, and obviously Moose Johnston.
Zonka.
And Larry Zonka, yeah. You... And I don't say this because we're sitting here today, you were always my favorite. And so I was spoiled as a kid to grow up and see Donovan McNabb, see Poles, see Kevin Johnson, see all of these guys that were just on a team that it just felt different. And the thing is, you guys didn't win every game, but when I think about those teams, in my head it's 12-0 every year. Because maybe the fun that you had, the games that you did win, the teams that you beat, the way that you played, there was just a different swagger about Syracuse.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this, by the way, all the people you just mentioned are coming back tomorrow night. So it'd be fun to have everybody back in town. Those teams, I think about Kyle McIntosh, myself, Don, playing in the backfield 4 years together.
Yeah.
As even our sophomore, junior, senior years, there was a certain amount of swagger that we had. We thought we were the best backfield out there. I think that you had Don, who was a really unique player in college football at that time. Obviously a terrific football. I was a very unique fullback at the time, as a playmaker, as a runner and a catcher. We had a different type of team that a lot of teams had a hard time dealing with. Some of the very best teams in the Big Ten that we played, they had no idea how to deal with this. So we had a lot of fun. We had some fun personalities too. Don was a lot of fun to play with, He was kind of like Eddie Murphy and Brett Favre mixed together, But we were a close-knit group, and it's funny though when you think back and you think about this team. We never had to start like this. We always lost a game here, lost a game there.
Yeah.
Probably tried to do too much, but when you look back at the talent on those teams, I hear it all the time. But we just had an amazing amount of young talent that developed to just be great football players over time.
And when you look back on that, like you said, you didn't win every game and didn't start out 6-0, but there's so many NFL guys on those rosters. When you look back on this, you look at Syracuse history, when they talk about Syracuse's success in the NFL and bridge to the NFL, a lot of that meat comes inside of those years that you were playing.
Yep. We had, I'll tell you, the one thing we had was an incredible work ethic. People always talk about, what I took away from the game. It was literally how to work, because Paul Pasqualoni and George DeLeon and going before back, this is before these 20-hour rules you had. We were, 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, 4 practices a week. The problem was we ran 5 separate offenses at the same time. Yeah. And when we talk about it and we go back, if we just lined up and played, we probably would have done better. We would go to the line of scrimmage with 5-way check with these. And I always use the analogy, I went and played with the Dolphins, and Dan Marino was our quarterback, and we didn't have one check with me. The easiest office I ever had. But in offensive football, if you have one guy that has a missed assignment, most of the time it's an unsuccessful play. So when you have a 5-way check with him, more than often someone's going to miss it, and it happened quite a bit. And we lost, I can count probably 5 games that we should have never lost. That we didn't lose because we got beat physically or by talent. We got beat because of a missed assignment. So in hindsight, I think that had a good deal, good deal to do with it, to be honest with you.
Rob Konrad, the legend of 44, the last to wear 44 here at Syracuse. We're on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, on-site on location at Cafe Kubal, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, New York. And of course, locations on 3501 James Street in Syracuse, 324 West Water Street in Syracuse. Manly has 343 Fayette Street out there, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners for their drive-through location, North Syracuse, right by the airport. So I said you were my favorite, and it was so easy because back when you were playing fullback, to me, like, you had a favorite fullback, right? Around your time, around like this certain amount of years, there's you, there's Mike Allstott, right? There's certain guys that just stuck out, but you got involved in the offense, right? You had opportunities, you had different pieces out there. I don't think I ever told you this, but I grew up so I've been a Jaguar fan since day 0 from '95, but my second team, you're probably gonna get pissed, but my second team is the Cowboys.
Okay.
So there was a girl I went to college with, and I was dating her roommate, and she was obnoxiously an Eagles fan. So I went over to her, and I said, "You see the game last night, Monday night?" She was like, yeah. And I said, "And you saw Donovan McNabb out there?" She's like, "Yeah." And I was naming all these guys on the team. And I was like, and at the end of the game, when they were on like the 5-yard line, and he threw it to Rob Konrad, and Rob caught it in the end zone from Donovan McNabb on the Eagles, and they won. She's jumping up and down. She's like, "Yeah." I slapped her high five. I go, "Rob Konrad plays for the Miami Dolphins. Don't you ever talk to me about the Eagles again." And so I used you in the story. But I would have loved to see you play with Donovan McNabb in the NFL. I mean, you had a pretty good quarterback.
I did.
Yeah.
I was blessed to play with some pretty good players. Don turned into, excuse my voice, but Don turned obviously into a dynamic player.
Yeah.
That I go to Miami and play with Marino, which was, somewhat surreal. I think I was 6 years old when he got drafted in the NFL, but he's still down there, a good friend. But there was a point in time where I was a free agent, and I had a conversation with Don. Who knows? He probably broke rules back then, but they said, "Hey, it'd be good to." They ran this West Coast offense, and be good to get back together at the time because I was considering leaving the Dolphins. But they had some good players. They had, I think John Ritchie was there. was a good fullback for a while. And then I got Kevin Turner that played for a long time, who, God rest his soul, but was a very good football player. And Michael Westbrook, guys, plays out of the backfield. They had a lot of really good running backs, so it didn't work out, but it would have been fun to have some snaps with him. I do remember my rookie year when we played Don. He wasn't playing his rookie year, and they threw me right into the fire. and I remember him after the game, he was fuming that he was. I think Doug Peterson actually was starting for him. And you could see the look in his eye how determined he was to get back on the field. He just took off after that. So, it was always fun. We played Marvin Harrison, twice a year in the AFC. So always get to see Marv. He usually did some pretty good damage. And Dwight Freeney shows up there as well, and I'm having to block him. But we ended up having quite a few very talented players in the NFL.
What was it like blocking Dwight Freeney?
Well, I typically, my job was we can't block Dwight Freeney, so to chip him on your way out, if you will. He was so dominant. And he brought something different to the game that I don't think a lot of I think Richmond Webb might have crossed over. One of our tackles, I remember, they couldn't touch him. He was just so fast and so low. He kind of changed that position, changed the game. So, and it's fun. Dwight lives right down the road from me in West Palm Beach, Florida. So we get to see each other as well down there too. But he was, he changed the game. We had some guy, Marvin Harrison changed the game a little bit as a wide receiver. He was not your traditional. Like Keyshawn Johnson was your traditional wide receiver. Marvin kind of showed that getting in and out of routes that quick and not taking the big hits, catching the ball, being smart about it. That was very effective in the game. So it was interesting. It was great to see guys develop and evolve over time, and so it was fun.
Hey, seeing, like you said, these just incredible names. Did you ever feel the weight of your play? I mean, you've always been humble with me. We've talked a lot, and you're just. I mean, honestly, like sitting with you, it's like just sitting with a friend, right? It's like, hey neighbor, how you doing? Can I borrow a cup of sugar? Like, you're not somebody who's like, hey, look at everything I did. Did you ever feel the weight, though, of the fact that, I mean, you made it out of Syracuse to the NFL, and not only to the NFL, but you made it to a position that not every team cares for, and not every team utilizes, and not every team saves a roster spot for.
Yeah, it was. I think it felt. I was I very well might have been the last highest drafted fullback in the NFL. The position was kind of leaving.
Remind everybody when you were drafted too.
What pick?
Yeah.
43rd. I need one more.
43rd for a fullback.
But the thing was, at the time they were changing the pass interference rules, and basically where you couldn't jam guys in the line of scrimmage. So the league wanted more almost like in the NBA. They wanted more passing, more points. So the power football game really kind of it changed quite a bit, and you were incentivized to have either a tight end that could line up on the line and stretch the field, or put in a third wide receiver. And so Wes Welker was on the Dolphins at the time, young kid, and he kind of was that slot receiver. Early in my career, I never came off the field, first, second, third down. The end of my career, I was a better football player. I only played half the snaps, which was interesting. And so the game has evolved, and I barely recognize it today. It's a very different game. But look, I took a ton of pride in playing the game of football and becoming the best I could be. That's all you can do, right? At the end of the day, is how much you can back it up. But I mean, I've never thought of myself anything different than any other guy. I've always wanted to do other things in life as well. And I knew being a fullback, the days of Larry Zonka, carrying the team were long gone. If I caught 4 or 5 balls a game and blocked well, I mean, my biggest production was probably Ricky Williams when he was, his big rushing years, and we were kind of at the tip of the spear, bottom of the pile. Still feel those hits today, but we had some pretty good teams.
Did Ricky take the time to kind of say, hey, thanks for blowing that hole open for me?
Yeah, Ricky was a very different guy, but yeah, no, he's great. He would let you know in his own way. Like at the end of the year, a watch. I think he's got a watch that says, which is a little odd, but you were the wind beneath my wings or something along those lines. But he was, he
gave you that watch. It says that.
Yeah, great watch, and I those are kind of like blood years, that we those years he was rushing for almost 200 or 2,000 yards. So that meant a lot to me, and we keep in touch. But he's not he's not the Emmitt Smith rah type of guy. He's not going to go in the Hall of Fame and cry about me like Emmitt did Daryl Johnson. It's not his deal. But we had a deep close relationship. You have to working that closely together for so long,
Ricky Williams' interesting story in his world is that I was waiting for Donovan to get drafted the year that the Browns came back, and Tim Couch went and won. And we were down at Walt Disney World, and it was around Easter time, it was break, and my dad's just kind of sitting up on the bed watching the TV. I got the draft on, and I say, my mom goes, what are you doing? She goes, put your swimming trunks on, we're going outside. I said, I'm not leaving until Donovan gets drafted. She goes, you better hope he gets drafted quick. And I was nose to nose to the TV, gets drafted second, and I'll never forget, my mom was like, good, and put your trunks on, because we have to go. And I'll never forget all of the Philadelphia Eagle Ricky Williams jerseys, and that they booed Donovan McNabb because they wanted Ricky Williams. You played with Donovan, you played with Ricky, so you have probably a unique angle at that draft day when the fans wanted Ricky Williams.
Sure. Number one, they absolutely made the right choice. I mean, it's Ricky was a great player, but I don't think people realize how good Don was in the NFL. And I know Don and I played in the Senior Bowl together when we were done, and he was coached by Andy Reid. Yeah. And I saw Don transform into a dynamic college quarterback to a great quarterback in 2 weeks in the West Coast system. And I remember saying, I said, where was this guy the last 4 years? I mean, but he just throwing the ball on time, and you can see it. Andy Reid, John Gruden, who runs the same offense, they were just salivating over Don. And sure enough, he got in that system and played at extremely high level for a long time. I mean, those Eagle teams were. There's a couple teams you did not want to run into in the playoffs or in general, and they were one of them. I mean, they were a good team.
Rob Konrad, the legend of 44, back here in our city of Syracuse, New York, as he gets honored as a LetterWinner of Distinction. And amidst all of this, as they're honoring you, you paid it forward back to them. And in this new Lafley complex and all these things that are coming up for the sports on campus at Syracuse University, you decided to donate to sponsor the running back room, the Legend of 44. And I heard they gave you a break, a couple coupons, right? So what made you want to have this room be sponsored by you and to have this Legend of 44?
Well, listen, there's a couple of things. Number one, at least in my life, you only get so many things to do in life, and you like to leave someplace better than when you got there. And I thought we did that. I think collectively we were all upset for years that it left the program for about a decade or so. So I've been, as I mentioned, with John Wildhack, became friendly with him, and been trying to work with him on ways to kind of get back to where we were. And that's taken some different changes. We were gonna have a coaches fund at one point in time. Now you have all this NIL stuff going on, but a thing that came up is they're raising money for the new facility and selling room. Is it that bad?
No. I don't want you to have to struggle. I know what it's like to have terrible allergies here. Ricola should be sponsoring the broadcast. Right?
So, with John, I've been talking for a couple of years, and finally the opportunity came up. They said, hey, do you want to, they gave some of the players the opportunity to either, sponsor a locker or a running back room. And, with Floyd passing away and getting to know him more recently, and just with Jim and everything, I said, you know what, I'll do it, but I want to make sure it's. I feel at times some of the history of this place is lost on the younger guys, and so have it be the legend of 44 room. And one of the things I mentioned to you, which was nice, is I had the last 44 jersey I wore in the Orange Bowl. I've already donated back to the school, but I still have the helmet. And back when they retired the jersey, I met the gentleman who had Jim Brown's college football helmet, and I always had his number. And I remember, I know I was there with Jim when Jim said, "Yeah, that's my college football helmet." So the guy refused to sell it. Finally, after years, he agreed to sell it to me, and I told him that I was going to match up the last and the first helmet, and we're going to put it in the 44 running back room at the facility, and he agreed to do it. So I thought it was a really good tribute, and for me, you go to work every day, you walk in that room. You understand kind of who came before you and what type of players were there. I'm trying to get some, like Larry and I was talking to Terry Richardson the other day. Get guys that are to donate some stuff and have just so they understand the caliber of guys that have come through that room before. So and it's a good amount of money to help fund the facility and fund up the uprising of the program. So
and it's so. You just have to do that. So it's amazing, wires in today's world. Gotta have wireless and wires. But no, as you talk about it, the Legend of 44, to not just call it the running back room, but to give it the Legend of 44. I know that if I was being recruited by Syracuse, I know if I walked in and I saw the Legend of 44, I'd be like, what is that? What you want to know it, you want to be around it. And then I think walking in there every day as a running back, you feel the weight of that. Like, I'm a Syracuse University student athlete, I'm a Syracuse University football player, but if I'm a Syracuse University running back, there's something on top of everything that is like that unique. Like, I play for the school, I go to the school, but if I'm a running back in the Legend of 44 room, I better run hard, I better run downhill, I better be fast, I better be explosive, I better knock some people over, I better represent these people that came before me, and that's why I love that it's called the Legend of 44, because I don't think a running back can walk in there and give half of themselves.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, when you talk, look, these kids weren't even born when I played them. I didn't know these people, and I want to make sure those kids know it, what legacy they're part of, and really something to aspire to, and let them know that we're all watching them.
Well, and that's the thing is that, so I mean, I know you and I have talked about this before, and I know you said you would defer to Jim. There may come a day where, if they want to unretire 44, they might come to you. They might come to Terry. They might come to Michael Owens. What are your thoughts on? I mean, have you ever kind of ran through your head?
Oh yeah.
So
I've got no kind of dog in the fight with it. My singular view is this: is that it has been in no uncertain terms kind of told to me that Jim would view it as a punishment to unretire, in his view, his number.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so as long as I'm around, look, I view it as those guys' number. I just happen to be lucky to be part of it. I'd like to think that I added to the number to some extent, but certainly not what they did. And I'm always, as long as and I told John Wildhack, I said, John, you've been great and I love you, but I'm probably going to be here for the next, hopefully, 2 or 3 athletic directors, and I want to, make sure that I pass along that message, because as time goes on, unfortunately, there's fewer of us to talk about it, and for my mind, it's my message is really Jim's, and I defer to him. If Jim said tomorrow, hey, I think it should go to someone, I would support it, but just out of respect for arguably the best football player in all of history that kick-started things here at Syracuse, and really kickstarted the whole legend, I defer to him, and and so that is my answer. It will be my answer. I've told John and Dino that. I told Tucker that, and I said, hey, look, this is nothing to do with you at all. I think he's a great player, and but it has to do with just the legacy, and it has to do with Jim. So, and I know a lot of people don't love hearing that. A lot of people want to see that number in the field, and for me too, I think like last year, it would have been upsetting to me to have that number on the field. But when you're and when you're playing good football, it makes it a little bit easier to start thinking about those things. But anyways, that's kind of the way I think about it and the process I go through.
Yeah, and I respect it. Like you said, I defer to Jim, and because Jim, there's a lot of people that wore 44, and I don't think people know the long line of it. You remember sometimes it hit, sometimes it didn't.
Yep.
But people remember you, they remember Jim, they remember Ernie, they remember Floyd, they remember Terry, they remember Michael Owens on the undefeated team in '87 with my guy Rob Drummond in the backfield with him too. So there's the ones that they remember, but there were so many that wore it. And I spoke with Tuck at the end of last season, and I'll never forget it. He was sitting in a chair, he was sitting sideways, and I knelt down on the ground, I was shooting a video, I was right in front of him, and I said to him, I said, so what do you think? And what do you think about the number? He said, I don't want it. And I said, okay. Well, he's like, you know what? He said, I've been trying to build my own history. I feel like I've done a pretty good job. I want to make 34 something special. I think I've done that.
Yep.
And I said, what if they offered it to you right now? He said, I wouldn't take it.
Yep.
He's like, I don't want it. He wanted to make his own. Rob Drummond was offered 44. He said, I don't want to live in the shadow. I want to make my own. So he made 36 something.
Yep.
So Walter Reyes made 39 something. Yep. So there's guys that have made that choice to say, Jerome Smith was the first 1,000-yard back that Syracuse had. I mean, you think about how long it's been in between Sean Tucker and Jerome Smith. When Jerome was doing it, he wore 45.
Yep.
So you look back on these running backs, and some of them said, hey, if I got it, maybe. Or if they offered it, no. Some of them were offered it, said no. Some said yes. So it's
interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's even for me. I was a fullback, the first fullback. If you don't want to call Jim a fullback, but I knew I wasn't going to get a bunch of carries. So I remember sitting down with Coach Bascaloni. He said, look, no matter how good you are, you're going to get criticized because they're going to judge you against those stats. And he said, but if you're, and from my standpoint, I didn't care. I care. No one was going to put more pressure on me. I ended up, becoming the, top fullback in the country, right? I probably for a couple years. And but today, if you think about it, no matter what I did at fullback, I'm never going to measure up to, those guys. Never going to be in the Heisman Trophy. But that's not what it was about to me. It was about greatness. It was about carrying the school and the culture and leadership of that program on your shoulders. Yeah. That's what it meant to me. It means things to different people, but it's with Tucker, I said make 34 great, and make 34 a number, and have it be your own thing, because it's a lot like Michael Vick. I was talking to Michael Vick a few weeks back. He was going to come to Syracuse, and they wanted him to be the next Donovan McNabb. He didn't want to be the next Donovan McNabb. He wanted to be himself. He went to Virginia Tech. It would have been nice if he came to Syracuse. But it's, so I get it. I absolutely get it. And it's I think to a certain degree, maybe it should stay up there. It's, if the only thing I could even think about is if there's just such a dynamic guy and he says, you got to have that. But you look back, it's funny. The one thing I had in common with Floyd is both of us were going to go to Notre Dame, and wearing Jim Brown's number had a lot to do with us coming back to Syracuse, which is interesting. So a lot of conversation there, but special number.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, wearing it as a fullback, and bring me into that. I want to be a fly on the wall in your recruitment. And when they brought that number out to you, had they met you? Had you been on campus before? Had you talked to them? Was it kind of like a, hey, you're going to Notre Dame, but what if we threw this in there? How did the conversation come about that this even came up? And was it like a last-ditch effort? Was it in the beginning? Where was it?
Yeah, well, you know what? My year was the first year they started really offering it early. My sophomore year, I accepted a verbal scholarship to Syracuse. I was the first kid in the country. I was parade All-American in high school, but I wanted to play fullback. There were only a few places that used their fullback. Notre Dame was one of them. Mark Edwards was there at the time. Lou Holtz was there at the time. And it's Notre Dame. And so it was a big deal. So I, coming from a Boston Catholic Conference high school, I said, you know what, I'm committed to Syracuse, but I'm going to go to Notre Dame. Paul and George DeLeon showed up at my house within like 30 minutes and were like, listen, we want you to wear 44 at Syracuse. And that was to seal the deal, and it was part of it. And I knew it was special, and it was a number I wore anyways, but it was certainly used as a recruiting tool. Yeah. But that doesn't always work that way. It's got to be the right person, has to be the right kid, and it has to be someone who really wants it. In my case, in Floyd's case, that made a lot of sense. It meant something to us, but it doesn't to everybody. So.
Yeah, and like you said, special meaning to you, and the importance of that, and then that last, kind of come in with Coach P and Coach DeLeon saying, hey, we want you to wear 44, please don't go to Notre Dame.
Yeah. And that told me, look, every coach is going to tell you how important you are, how much they love you. That told me, you're important to us, and we're gonna use you. You're going to be a big part of this. And so it was a big commitment on their part as well. So that was part of it.
Yeah, and when you have this opportunity to do that, and like you said, to be in that opportunity and to live in that world where they come to a fullback and say, that really shows, hey, we love you and we want you here, that they were willing to keep it in the backfield but move it over. How did you feel about walking on the field for the first time and knowing you're wearing 44 and you're in the backfield, and the expectation of how often a 44 at Syracuse should get the ball, what they're doing, like you're the one blocking for the guy, and they're thinking in their head, no, he's got to be the guy. He's wearing 44. He's got to run the ball 30 times a game. He's got to get 200 yards a game.
I used to hear it a lot, and I think there's maybe some fans that don't quite know the game that realize that as a fullback, when you give the fullback the ball, you take away a blocker. And so you're by definition disadvantaged. So there's not a lot of plays in the game. They had to create plays for me in that offense to get the fullback the ball. It's difficult. And I remember a couple of years, people saying, people feel you're letting down the legacy of, of 44. I think my freshman year, I think I scored. Jim was in town. I scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. And a reporter asked me about how if I think I'm letting down the legacy, and it hit me then, and I told him, I said, look, I'm a fullback. I'm not going to carry the ball 30 times a game, and I will tell you this: I'm going to be the best damn fullback I can be. Hopefully, I have the ability to back it up, and but I'm never gonna have those numbers. I'm never even gonna have the opportunities to to have those numbers, so internally I accepted that. But I know for a lot of the Syracuse faithful that wanted a Jim Brown or so, they wanted that, and it was just not, as a fullback, it was just never gonna happen.
Rob Konrad here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of Cafe Kubal, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, where we are today. And you're getting honored as a LetterWinner of Distinction. Just gave the Legend of 44 future running back room, and the last 2 don the number 44. And we were talking about you were going to go to Notre Dame, and you went to Syracuse because Coach P and Coach DeLeon said, if you come here, you can wear 44. Well, interestingly enough, how the world is so unique, and in the sports world it's so poetic, and I tell people all the time, irony is something I deal with almost on a daily basis when it comes to sports. To have you come back as the letter winner of distinction, the last to wear 44, and to have almost gone to Notre Dame but going to Syracuse, and on the weekend they honor you as a letter winner is when Notre Dame comes back to the Dome for the first time in forever. This feels like a Rob Conrad weekend.
Yeah, we're excited about it, yeah, thought has come to mind, and I've let some of my Notre Dame. I played with Autry Denson and some guys in the backfield from Notre Dame, so we've already got some little side bets going on for the game. But yeah, no, it was, thinking back during that time frame, it was pretty intense, and it's great to have them in the Dome. And look, that program is great. Their coach, the coach that went to LSU previously went to my high school for a long time, so we're close to the program. But it'll be fun, and it is full circle certainly, and we're looking forward to it. And it's for me more than anything, having my Syracuse family coming back. My old man who went through all that with me is going to be here, and it'll be a great weekend.
Your dad coming back, can we shout him out as well?
Yeah, sure.
I want to send a little message to Dad.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, so YouTube and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and on site at Cafe Kubal. So
excellent.
Let's shout Dad out.
Dad, we love you, and he's probably on the Mass Turnpike and driving right now, coming out to see us. But we're excited, and I'll tell you what. He's always been my number one fan, and is super excited about this weekend and the game. So I'm happy to see him, and he knows how much I appreciate him. He was a big part of it.
When you decided in your heart, I'm coming to Syracuse.
Yeah.
Bring me into that conversation with your parents.
Well, it's interesting. So I was born in Rochester, and Mark Banowitz, if you remember Mark, was now one of my business partners. His father and my father worked together at Xerox before we were born. So we have a lineage kind of together, and we have family up here. So my decision, I wanted to play Eastern football. I lived in Boston. It was BC, Syracuse, or Notre Dame. Really were the schools. Notre Dame, I wouldn't really consider Eastern football. It's just great. And like I said, having family up here and having the opportunity for my family, my sister, my friends to come to these games was great.
If Mom was here right now, what do you think she would say, knowing that her son is the letter winner of distinction? Her son has worked his tail off beyond football to have the resources to give back to the school that he came to, that he was the last to wear 44, that his jersey I walk by 5 billion times a year in the football wing. Yeah. What do you think Mom would say right now?
I think she'd be shocked that that I've been able to take probably that work ethic and translate that into success into other things. And she saw my passion, my obsessiveness in football, and it's to be able to transition that into the business world and be in a position to provide back to an institution that gave me so much. I know something that would probably surprise her, but we miss her to death. She'll be there with us in spirit certainly, and but she used to she had more fun coming to the Dome for those games. I remember her and Mrs. McNabb jumping over the fence running onto the field, and they just absolutely loved watching me play football, and it was I hope we brought her a lot of joy during those years.
I didn't know if I'd ever see this again in my life, which is a sellout crowd at the Dome. It's been a long, treacherous last few years, and 49,705 people show up against NC State, considered a sellout. There was one little part on the side that was open maybe to some more student seats or whatnot. So sold out crowd, 49,705. Find out for the Notre Dame game, sellout crowd. So I didn't know if I'd ever see one, and I'm going to get to see two back to back. Again, the poetry of the Rob Konrad story, that when they honor you, you're going to be in front of a sellout crowd at the Dome. Did you think we were going to see this anytime soon, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, you know what? We were lucky to come up. So I've been trying to support the program now since Sean came back. So we buy a box every year. Unfortunately, I only get to come up to a couple games. I usually, the alumni, my teammates, and try to let them use it, have a nice place to watch a game. Came up a couple years ago, watch them beat up Florida State. I brought my daughters with me, and which is fun. I'm most excited to show my daughters what the Dome was like when we played. And that there's few places. I played in a lot of stadiums, a lot of big games, and that place in big games is one of the most exciting and most fun places to play. And when we left, it was like that, and it fell off for a long time. And I really, really hope we can get back to that and bring excitement to the students in Syracuse, the people of Syracuse. I mean, it's something special, and I hope it continues. And, I hope we don't lose it again.
Dino brought up Otto's Army and that fan base, that vibrant group. What do you want to say to Otto's Army, Orange Nation, the students? What do you want to say to them about what you expect and what you hope for in the Dome?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. More so than that, I'll tell you what it means for the players in the field. When you're sitting behind your TV and you're yelling at the coaches and players, they can't hear you. The reality is, fans make a tremendous impact when you're on the field, especially in opposing offenses. But besides the energy that's from the Dome, not being able to hear calls, but just it is absolutely an advantage. To have a passionate team, and you look at the SEC, you look at those crowds, the energy they bring, and it actually, you are part of the game, and so we keep it going. I know Dino's talked about it. It's been great to see, but you become part of the game, and you become an impact in the game, and so enjoy that part of it because it's unique. And especially in this Dome, sitting on top of the field and with a roof on top of you, it gets magnified. So keep bringing it.
And you brought it up, and I've talked to players about this. They said, hey, I was like, when people leave in the third quarter, do you see it? And because I thought, how do you not? And they said, yeah, we see it. We see Dome's got 30,000. Fourth quarter, there's 10,000 people. And so I had players say to me that they felt it. There was one game where Syracuse lost big to Clemson at home, and this woman stood up at the end of the game because the team fought hard. And I remember thinking that to myself, like, yeah, they lost, but this team fought a respectful kind of way where you're like, this, even though they lost, this was a different type of game. And this woman stood up, and I was in the press box, and I saw her, and she got up after the game, a couple minutes after the game, she started clapping. And somebody else started clapping, somebody else started cheering. And there wasn't a ton of people that had stayed, but they did that. And I went and I talked to one of the quarterbacks after the game, and I said, what'd you think about that? And he looked at me and he goes, it's about damn time that we saw that. That about damn time that somebody got up and said, hey, thanks.
Yeah.
And so I said, going into the season, I said, oh, listen, I know you need to see what happens with Louisville and this and that, but I said to the fans, if Syracuse takes care of Louisville, and Syracuse goes on the road, does what they're supposed to do, and blow out UConn, I want $40K for Purdue, and I didn't get it. And then I wanted $40K for Virginia, and I didn't get it. And then Wagner, I was like, I know I'm not going to get $40K for Wagner, but I kept saying I want $40K. Yeah. And then they gave me almost $50K. And now they're going to do it again this weekend. So I'm grateful for the fans, because I tell them all the time, listen, you can go apple picking Sunday. You can go pumpkin picking if there's any pumpkins left any other day of the week. And if you go on a Monday or a Tuesday, you're not going to be battling off someone's grandma to get that last really nice pumpkin. You don't want to go to the mall because you get shot. So there's all these things going on in Syracuse that you don't need to do. And I tell people, what are you doing on a Saturday in Syracuse from noon to 3 or 3 to 7 or whatever it may be? You have no excuse. And to see them show up I love it,
Yeah.
and you said it. How many times have I been in the Dome where I hear third down, and there wasn't a lot of fans there, and they complete the third down? Now I hear third down, and how many times have they blown the call, gotten a penalty, offsides, they jumped? So many things have happened on third down this year that I would say, like, this season alone is more than multiple seasons of a Dome that's half full.
I've been blessed to know a lot of coaches and players that played against us, and hands down in big games, they say it's the toughest place to play because of it. Just because of the way the Dome is built and how it echoes and when the fans are into it. I have a little different view on it. I've always told the players, I said, look, if you don't like guys celebrating in the end zone, make sure they stay out of the end zone.
Yeah.
If you want people coming to the stadium, give them a reason to come to the stadium. And guess what? I think the kids are giving them a reason to come to the stadium right now. I've been so proud of them, the way they played this year, and so I hope everybody comes out. But I think they also, recognize the fact that in these games, when the stadium's full, you as a fan, you matter. You impact the game, and I think we played in Michigan in the largest game ever in college football history, 120,000 people. You could hear a pin drop. In this Dome, you matter. You affect the game. So I hope everybody makes it out.
There's something that they added in the NC State game, and I think it's definitely a competitive advantage, and I hope that they don't stop doing it, is that when the announcer yells third down, there's like this booming sound. You're going to hear it on Saturday. So he does the third down, and then you hear this, and it goes like that. Like it sounds like a UFO crashed in the Dome. You hear this like, and right before they hike the ball, you hear this like that noise, just like bang. And I was just like, damn. I said, I wonder if like one of the coaches is going to complain to the NCAA and be like, they can't do that sound that throws us off. But as long as they can do the sound, I don't know why they didn't do it from the beginning of the season, but you hear like this, literally like a UFO just lands. And I'm like, damn, that's got to be almost impossible to hear anything when you hear that. And you think about it, if you're a quarterback, right before you hike that ball, you hear this whoosh, and it's like, how do you deal with it?
Throw you off, almost like the NFL. They used to pipe in crowd noise in like the RCA Dome, which is probably not the worst idea. But listen, all that stuff matters. It's tough. In Virginia Tech, they have that darn hokey sound, that turkey always throws you off. They play all the time.
You're out there and like,
what in the world just happened? But
that would throw me off if I heard that really weird noise.
But it's I'll tell you what though, it's fun. It's just fun being in that atmosphere, that college atmosphere. And I felt like it's left the program for a little while. And it's my daughters have pointed it out to me more recently. Who have been looking at colleges. They want to go to. I've been friendly with the chancellor more recently, and I've had conversations with him relative to how big of a marketing tool sports are for the university. And when kids want to go to a school that have sports programs that are exciting, for entertainment, and what you're doing now and the crowds you're seeing now versus maybe the 20 or 30,000 kids that were, people that were showing up a few years ago. It's a different animal, and it's terribly meaningful. Best advertising, probably most efficient, cost per dollar advertising you'll ever get. So I hope he keeps up the support. I know he's stepping up his support for the program, and keeps it happening.
Yeah, and it felt really different in the NC State game. And I think now for the Notre Dame game, you're going to see that difference. Also in 2024, there's going to be a very unique thing that hasn't happened. And I feel like this is going to make you say, for real, but it's true. When Miami comes to the Dome in 2024, it will end a 22-year hiatus.
They haven't played in 22 years?
They haven't played in the Dome in 22 years. They played down there in Coral Gables, Miami Gardens and whatnot. They have not played. Miami has not come to the Dome since 2002.
Wow.
You're talking like when Miami was leaving the Big East.
Yeah. They're pretty good at that time, if I remember too. But they were, well. Listen. I mean, you've had Joe Paterno say point blank, we're not going to play Syracuse anymore because they're trying to damage our program, right? You've had. I was talking to O.J. McDuffie, who I played with at Syracuse the other day, and I mean, there's teams that don't want to play at the Dome, and I don't blame them when they're good. It's a tough place to win. Tough place to win.
And when you go back to your time at the Dome, and we like reminisce about different pieces and whatnot, is there a moment that sticks out in the huddle specifically of a play or something that Donovan McNabb said or somebody said? Is there even a joke moment, even like if you were up big on somebody and you got in there and somebody just said something and it made you stop and go and just kind of laugh to yourself? Do you have a huddle moment?
I got a. I mean, Don was like Eddie Murphy, so he always kept it entertaining. He had supreme confidence and was probably the funniest thing that they started calling out names and numbers when they were calling penalties, and we had an offensive lineman named Sheldon Prescott. And they called him for holding. And they said, holding number 77, Prescott. And he turned around and said, I can't say it on radio, but he was like, what? For the first time ever. But, no, the Dome when you're in offense, it's pretty tame. But on the defensive side of the ball, it's a lot of excitement. But, yeah, I remember a couple times trying to, we had 5-way checks at the line of scrimmage. And trying to hear 5-way checks a lot of times when that place was loud was let's just say it wasn't the easiest thing in the world.
and that's the thing is like the Dome will get loud and then they kind of like for Syracuse just quiet down for the Orange. But you played in a hot dome.
Yes.
Back in the day, the irony again with sports, it makes no sense. It's called the Carrier Dome. Carrier is an air conditioning company, but there was no air in the dome. Then the dome got renovated and got changed to the JMA Wireless Dome, and now there's air conditioning. So what was it like on the field? And they say, well, you guys practice in it, you guys walk through in it. So Syracuse was prepared, so you were trying to smoke out the teams you were playing, get them to stop breathing. But we're all human beings. Did your body ever get used to the fact that
who won the national championship? And we had that game won. But I will tell you, it was, they probably 6 guys in their team ended up cramping up and came out of the game at one point. They didn't know what they were getting in for, and it was hot. But they thought they were coming to the Northeast in the Dome, and and they got in there, and it was anything but. And but yeah, it was hot earlier in the year, and it was quite the quite an interesting instance that the Carrier Dome was. Heck, a couple years ago, I had my box, and we went to a game, and I remember leaving the box. I mean, I was in a box, not even playing. I was drenched in sweat watching a football game, and that couldn't have been good for ticket sales either.
No, there's nothing about, and men don't talk about this enough. There's nothing about sitting in the press box or in the box or wherever you're at. There's nothing from my personal point of view that is more like than having like wet pants because you've been sweating down your legs like into your socks, and to the point where I'm like, I don't want to wear shorts. To me, I'm like, I want to wear pants, wear dress pants. I cover the Jaguars and it's hot as all get out, but I was like, I want to look nice and I would wear a suit, but I was like, if I wear a suit, I'm gonna die. And where we park for the where the media parks in all different places. This year, a few of us have like the luxury of parking in Wisconsin. And when we're walking up the hill, we have to walk up the hill to the Dome and around 3/4 of the Dome. And I was like, if I wore a suit, I'd have to get it dry cleaned every week. And I'm not doing that. So I try to I get these lightweight, dress pants that are kind of like warm-up pants and get a nice polo on. But when you get in there, it feels better now. But I feel exactly how you feel. There's nothing like sitting in the chair and you go to get up and you're just like, ew. You know what I mean? You just feel gross.
And I'll tell you what, they've done a great job with the Dome. I mean, Sal and Wild Hack and the whole crew. I mean, they've really done the game day experience. I almost related to Miami. When I played in Miami, it was a hunk of cement, old pro player stadium. And their new owner owned a related group and was a builder, and the game day experience is completely different. They're shaded, it's great, and I feel like the Dome is, it's taken a while, but they're there where it's nice. It's a nice experience. It's especially when the team is playing great, where that wasn't always necessarily the case. It was built in the '80s, and as you got in the mid '90s, it was getting a little dated. To be honest with you, and I think there's still work to be done, but to get that crowd there on every weekend, they're doing the things necessary, to bring the program back, and I'm excited. I really am. For the first time in a long time, I'm really excited. I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to rally a lot of the guys to come back and do their part. I know there's a lot of economic activity happening here in Syracuse. The school's doing well, the team's doing well, and for us, it's it's a point of pride, and we'd love to see the get back to kind of where we were in the late '80s and through the '90s and be a kind of perennial top 25 team. I think the school has every reason to get there. Rondé Gatson his dad was my teammate in Miami. I remember him talking to me about Syracuse.
He was pretty good, right? He was okay.
Yeah, he's all right. And his son's been playing great, but all those kids down there, and it would be a great mouthpiece for what we're doing in Syracuse. But Olindo Mari and I remember we sat down and had hour-long conversation with Rondé about Syracuse, what it's all about, and you can start seeing those things now. Kids that not that we're gonna become a hotbed of recruiting from Florida, but I think it's kids have a decision to make between Rutgers or Syracuse or BC or what have you. It's we're making advancements. We're doing some really good things.
And you talk about obviously the Olindo Mare side of things, and I love putting specialists out there with offense and defense, because forgetting it is ridiculous because of how, it's literally you decide on special teams where your opponent starts and you decide where you get to start. So it's literally, it's how short or long is your field? It's special teams. Olindo Mare comes to Syracuse, also goes and becomes a Dolphin. Why don't we talk about Olindo Mare enough? He's one of the greatest kickers that we got to see in NFL history, in my opinion.
I was just on the phone with Lindo before we came in here, which is great. He's one of my best friends, and the funny thing is, the reason we don't talk about him, he was only here 2 years. He only really kicked 1 year, and we didn't let him kick field goals. Sean Reale kicked field goals for us, but Lindo always had a huge leg, and he put the ball in the third row on the Dome in kickoffs. Well, he figured out something real quick, and has his cleat in the Hall of Fame in Canton, and played 17 years, played with me in Miami, and became a great kicker. But it didn't quite kick in until he ended up being a free agent with the Giants. But another tremendous alumni, and he cares a lot about the program, and we've had a lot of great guys come through here, to say the least.
Yeah, a lot of incredible players. And before we get into our rapid fire piece here, LetterWinner of Distinction, how would you describe it?
Yeah, well, it's the first one for me. I'm excited to go. For me, a lot of my old teammates are coming back. For those that can't, Don can't make it. His wife Roxy's going to be there. One of my co-captains, my real good friend Scott Kieran, who unfortunately passed. He's not going to be there. His wife at the time, Chrissy's going to be there. It's a lot. Jay Poles will be here. A lot of the guys that meant a lot to me when I played are going to be there, which will be great. For me, it was always important for me. Football was always important, but I never wanted to define me. I wanted to do other things in life.
Yeah.
And I feel very blessed. I've had the opportunity to do some of those things, and I'm still doing some of those things. But I think that's a lot of what this award is about: is greatness on the field, and and what you do with it afterwards. And
Yeah.
so from that extent, there's a great group of folks that have been inducted. Reggie Terry, who was a guy who was an associate athletic director of PC, is a good friend of mine, was here. He won last year. Talked quite a bit about it. A great man, just absolutely great man. And for me, it's meaningful to me because I care a lot about both things and take a lot of pride in what I did in my misspent youth of athletics and translating really a lot of those lessons learned in what we've done in business and service, to the people of where we live now. So I'm honored, excited, and I can't wait to see all the Syracuse family tonight.
And you sent, like I said, you had sent me that letter, and just you're like, hey, check this out. And you're like, I don't even know if this is out yet, but here. And I do have to say that for me, I know I talk about our friendship that we've built. It's insane. And I had somebody ask me last night. They said, do you like what you do? And I said, the crazy thing about my life is that I don't have the autographs all over. I don't have the pictures all over. I have the friendships, and they mean way more to me than a card. And to get a text message and out of nowhere, and you can send that to anybody, and you can send the letter, and you can send hey, I'm coming into town, and hey, this is what I'm doing. I sat, I'll sit with my phone sometimes, and I'll get a message from you, and I'll look at this, and I'll think about being a kid and what I wanted to do when I grow up and all that, and just look at my phone and say, Rob Konrad took 5 seconds out of his day today to let you know what was going on in his life. This is awesome.
Well, I appreciate it, and you've been terrific, and to your point, it's look, autographs, pictures, what have you, that's for other people, right? I'm with you, and one of the things I've loved about being able to play sports and at the highest level, and it's the people you meet, and it's the things you take away from those people and those relationships that you build, and even the game itself. That's what I miss most about the game is the locker room. It's the guys. It's the bonds. I was with a buddy of mine the other day. Actually, one of the guys was a Syracuse guy, worked Denver, who is a Navy SEAL, and we were talking about just I won't see guys for 20 years.
Yeah.
We'll get in a room together, and it's just because of the fact that you fought and you bled and you battled together, you go right back to it, and you have that bond. And it's I don't want to compare it to the military because they're doing much more important work and they got bullets flying at them, but it's the closest thing I can say is those and it's a fraternity, and people you meet that have been through what you've been through, they understand it, and the guys that you spent that time with, you go right back to it, and that's why I enjoy it. I enjoy that. So, and you've been great to me. I've enjoyed meeting you. The more and more we talk, the more and more people we know the same.
Yeah.
Rob Drummond, I used to train with. I didn't know you know Rob. He was
one of my best friends.
Great player.
And Rob, and we got to, like I said, off the air when we were talking, I got to celebrate my birthday on Friday, October 21st, and the next day after the Clemson game, I had a get together, and I just turned 37, and I said, every year I want to just be around my people, and I know my people are all over the place, but I was like, for the people that are in town, I'd love to get together and whatnot, and Rob came out, and we've known each other for like 10 years now, and he's one of my best friends, and I said to Rob, it means a lot to me, and I always tell him, and I'll look at him, I'm like, I love you, and he goes, I know. He's like, I love you too. Like, you don't have to tell me. And he said, it took me 40 minutes to drive across town to come to your party, 40 minutes to drive back. And he said, if I did all of that just to see my brother for 5 minutes and to see you smile and to put a smile on your face and see you happy, then that was enough for me. And he said a long time ago, I don't come to all your shows because of the sports show and this and that. He goes, I come because I'm sitting with my friend.
Yeah.
And if you went back in 1985 on October 21st and went to Community General Hospital here in Syracuse and told that baby that all these guys that you watch are going to be your friend, and you're going to be able to call them in a time of need, call them to laugh, call them when they're being honored. If you told that little boy, Rob Drummond, Rob Konrad, and all of these just amazing, amazing people, even Eric Dungy, I got to ask him that question when he got emotional and be there in the room with him for that. If you told me that was going to be my life, you know, that the McIntosh brothers are going to be talking to me, and Kyle's going to drive 5 hours to do a show with me for something, I wouldn't even know what to say, but that's life now, and it's to your credit that you're just, there's so many incredible people that have come through here, and I'm very honored.
Well, first of all, thank you, and I'll tell you this, it's interesting, a lot of I get this question a lot about Dan Marino. Is Dan Marino a good guy? Dan's one of the very best. The problem is for him, he can't walk through an airport. He'll never make it through because he gets stopped every time. So he has to kind of, you know, push the people aside. Just say, I'm very sorry. I have to get someplace. The fact of the matter is this, and I'm not going to say it about everybody because you've got some special people. But in sports in general, it's a tough game for tough people, and you have a lot of really great people that care a lot about each other and are great guys. And you know, you learn early on, celebrity, athlete, whatever, they're people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know, it's once people understand that, and you get to speak with them on the level, right? A lot of people don't get to. They get to know you, and they're just people, and so it's great. Now a lot of them are very special people. People have dedicated themselves, have been through a lot of hard times. I feel the same way. I've been allowed to meet a lot of people I never thought I'd be around before, but you realize they're just people, and they have all the great attributes, all the faults. But
you know, broadcasting and all this, and I'm sitting here looking at him going like, "You want my help?" But we had this conversation, and he said, "Well, how did you do it?" I said, "I walked up to him like I should be in the room that he's in, and I talked to him like a human being, and I never put him on a level higher than me, because if you want to be in the room, then you need to act like you're supposed to be there." And so I said, I was like, I'm a huge, and it's funny because anytime I say this to any of the players, especially here at Syracuse, you all laugh. Like when I said, I was like, "You're my favorite fullback." Like, the kid in me is like, "Oh my God, like you love Dan Marino and Rob Konrad and OJ McDuffie." Like, I love that so many players on that team, and this is so cool, but I don't act, I'm not like, you don't fanboy out, but it's just funny to just say, "Hey Rob, we've talked for like 3 years. Oh, by the way, like I have a bunch of your cards, and I'm one of those people that would put a Rob Konrad plaque up because you were just a different type of dude."
Listen, and from my standpoint, Tommy Vardell was a guy. You remember Touchdown Tommy?
Yeah.
So Tommy Vardell was a guy who was kind of my hero.
Okay.
So I became friendly with Tommy later on. I texted him a couple things. He went to war number 44 at Syracuse. I'd mentioned the fact about Jim's helmet, and we've gotten to know each other tremendously. He's been great in business, and the same thing. I mean, he was the pinnacle of the position at the time. But just the fact of the matter that you're on the level with him, you have something to bring to the table, and we become dear friends with you. But that's great to hear, and it seems like you're having a lot of fun with the job, which is what matters most, right?
Yeah.
You got to be passionate about it, and you're doing a great job with it.
Well, you took a picture with, last year you sent me a picture of you and John Wallace.
Yep.
You wore 44 for basketball, and my favorite basketball player ever at Syracuse. And I was doing a golf tournament one time, and they said, "Oh, you're paired up with John." And I was like, "John Wallace?" And yeah, and John, not that great at golf. I've gotten better since this day, but I was atrocious that day. And I hit the ball off the tee, and I was looking, I'm like, "Where'd it go?" And John's on the side talking to somebody. The ball went straight up in the air, and came straight down. And John has a very high-pitched laugh. So John, out of nowhere, he's talking to the guy. He's like, "Yeah, man. So we should talk about this." And like that. And he's looking at. And then I did it. I was like, "Shut up, John." And then I did it again, and it went up in the air again. He's like, "Bro, twice?" And then he started laughing. So the first ever video interview I did with John Wallace, I said, "John, how am I as a golfer?" And he goes, and I still have the video on YouTube. He goes, "I'm bad, but Dan Tortora is the most horrendous golfer ever." And I was like, "Man, you're a jerk." But I've gotten so much better at it. But here's my favorite player when I was 9. And now, like, anytime I text him, he texts me right back. I know his family. I know his kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, it just reminds me every day, if you want something, go get it.
It's great. And you listen, John and I were in school a little bit together, and we used to mess with each other. Who is a better 44 on campus? Admittedly, he was like almost winning national championships. I gave it to him, but
hitting threes.
But he's great. He's coming up to the ceremony and coming to the game with me this weekend, and you know, we kind of have that kinship 44 brotherhood, if you will, and he's great. But it's He's scared to death of Derek Coleman, I think, but even Derek and I have talked a little bit. But it's special. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad he'll be up. You'll see him this weekend. He'll probably give you a hard time about your golf game again.
Yeah, I just love making him laugh, and I'll always get him to laugh. And he just has this high. It's so contagious, though.
And he's the only. I mean, all the 44s. He's the only one that can actually wear legend 44 and walk around the Carrier Dome and get away with it.
Oh yeah.
I can't do it. I know that much.
And John's got the suits tailored with the orange and all that. So how did you? So obviously you said you had some time on campus together.
Yeah.
How did you reconnect with John to the point where you guys were at the game last year together?
Yeah, we he has a little show he was doing, and had we keep in touch through various folks. But he's like, "Hey, I'd love you to come on," and I said, "Let's do it." But I'm gonna fair warn you. I'm gonna give you tell some stories about when I used to give you a hard time. So we we reconnected. He's in Florida quite a bit, and we've just been talking ever since. And so we go back and forth quite a bit. And great guy, just loves life. One of those guys that just has great energy, and he's a special guy to this university. During my time here, almost single-handedly, it was amazing to see what he did.
Yeah.
He almost took down half of the campus. I think playing against Kentucky in that Sweet 16 and Final Four games. And he's just a great guy, infectious. And I told him to look, life after basketball. If I can help you with anything at all, let me know. And we've been trying to be helpful with some things. And it's he's family, so try to do whatever we can to help him out. So.
Do you know how bad his temper is when he watches a game? That he's literally opened a window and thrown a TV out the window during a game. Do you know that?
I have not experienced that, and I hope not to experience that either, especially if it's in my box and my TV. But it's but he's competitive. I know that.
Yeah, he's definitely. Do you have a moment that you go back to in college? Speaking here with Rob Konrad, the last to wear 44 at Syracuse. Here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of Cafe Kubal on 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, New York. Locations all throughout, and you know that they are our exclusive studio partners. So Cafe Kubal with us every Wake Up Call broadcast, Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time worldwide. Do you have a moment on the field where you go back and you're just literally like, this person was such a jerk, like that you played up against? Just somebody that you maybe had something with on the field, had a little tussle, had a little moment, maybe somebody that just was constantly like, I'm better than you. Like, did you have like I don't even want to call it a Tyson Holyfield, because nobody's ear got bit off, but like like a Mayweather Pacquiao. Did you have somebody that brought that to you?
There's a kid, I can't remember his name now. He's a middle linebacker from UM.
Okay.
kind of it'll come to me, but he was one of those guys under the pile, be poking guys in the eyes, and they were just terrible. And so we got into it pretty good. I had a big to do for a lot of years of Brian Cox in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that was actually pretty fun. The game within. It was fun. He was a big dude and pretty tough guy. I mean, he was like 6'4", 260, and we collided a lot. But to get up for a game and to get inside the game, it was a lot of fun to play against. But not really. I think we as an offense in general, I think we stoked a lot of fear in a lot of defenses. I don't think there was I don't remember a whole lot of talking going on, to be honest with you. I think a lot of them were trying to figure out what was hitting them. I think part of the game is I'm not naturally a super aggressive person. And you have to get yourself in a set of mind, especially at fullback, that you're going to go to battle. And so I almost Jordan-esque make things up and get myself worked up for a game. So I probably thought I had something going on with some guys.
Like the water boy, when you just picture people saying
pretty
water
much.
sucks. Yeah.
I remember playing Al Wilson in Tennessee, and then in the NFL. He was such a good football player. I knew I had that bring my A game. So I remember going through some mental gymnastics before that one, trying to get worked up. But he's as gentle and good as guys could be. So.
Do you have so with McNabb and with Marino, how spoiled you were? Do you have a favorite play with them both?
Probably. I mean, I have a bunch with Don. Marino was tough. I mean, he was in his last year. I was 22 as a rookie. My favorite play with them was we played Monday Night Football. Elway they got their Super Bowl rings. I was a nervous wreck, and I played in big football games. And he ended up throwing me a touchdown pass where it was a winning touchdown for the game and relaxed me quite a bit. But we kept running off the field, and I got a smile just ear to ear.
Yeah.
And he's patting me on the back saying, "All right, kid, get off the field." And afterwards I had him sign it. A-Rob, congratulations on your first touchdown pass, my 409th. And so I have that hanging on my wall, but that's probably my most memorable play with him. Now, on the flip side, let me tell you what, you better damn catch a ball or be in the right place with Danny, because you're going to hear about it real quick. He was pretty famous for that, but he was a great leader. I wish I got more time to play with him.
To me, Dan Marino arguably has the best arm in the history of football. We hear about Tom Brady all the time because he's won the most Super Bowls. Who has the best arm?
The best arms I've ever seen, Brett Favre, Dan Marino. Those two are at the very top. I would say a younger Jeff George, although I don't know if he could hit the kind of broadside of the barn half the time. But Brett Favre was one of the most natural passers I've seen. And Danny just had this up and out and aggressiveness that the ball came off his fingers just different.
Yeah.
And that was at the very end of his career. I would have loved to have seen him in his prime.
I remember his last game because he went up against the Jaguars game.
I remember that game too.
62-7.
Yeah.
Fred Taylor, my favorite running back of all time, went off.
Great player.
So, not the way I want to see Dan Marino. I was happy for my Jags. Not the way I want to see Dan Marino, my first favorite player growing up as a kid, end his career. How did you walk off the field at that game?
It was terrible. I mean, we played the last game in the Superdome.
Yeah.
Won and at the end of the game, and that was a Sunday night game, first round of the playoffs. I had to fly back and then go on the road for the early game on Saturday. We were toast. And so my story on that game is at halftime, Jimmy Johnson's our coach.
Yeah.
Marino's our quarterback. And Jimmy walks in, it's maybe 45-3 or something at halftime.
Yeah.
And he said, "Gentlemen, this is my last game. You're playing for pride. Good luck," and walked out of the locker room. I'm a rookie. I'm thinking new Rockney was about to walk in the locker room and give us some pep talk, and that was my kind of introduction to the business side of the NFL, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
That's pretty interesting. So Jimmy just said, "Hey, this is it."
He was kind of half checked out that year. They had to talk him into coming back, but he at halftime said, "I'm out." And Dan was out, I think, by then. And it was and Fred, who I know very well and was one of the very best running backs, just had a field day on this.
It was a very unique, and you know, I argued that we go back to that time with Marino and you and so many good players that have come through, that once Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas left, that they've been rebuilding since.
Yep.
As I jokingly am like, when Dan Marino retired, they started the rebuild, and they're still rebuilding. However, Tua Tagovailoa has been, you know, he comes in this year, the team starts off hot, they're one of the only teams that are undefeated, he gets hurt, he comes back, he wins, beats Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm thinking in my head, you know what, there could be some truth to the notion that I said if he didn't get hurt, they might still be undefeated. What's going on in Miami right now?
They're playing good football. They for a long time, you know, 2/3 of Miami's salary cap went to defense. For the longest time, they played this college 4-3 from Jimmy Johnson. Zach Thomas could run free. Jason Taylor rush the passer. It was a great setup. Nick Saban came in, tried to run a 3-4. It was terrible. Basically ended Zach's career and reset the whole team. Right now, they finally have a position where they can have enough. They have a quarterback that can throw the ball. Yeah. They've got some really good wide receivers that can stretch the field, and they've got some really good. I guess so. As much as you can be a fan of a quarterback, I guess. I've always thought he's been good enough to win. He's a good kid. People said he's not a smart quarterback. I don't believe that at all. I mean, I thought Ryan Tannehill was good enough to win, and I always said that. And sure enough, he left and did a good job. It was the pieces kind of around him that weren't there, and those pieces are there now. You can stretch both sides of the field. You got a tight end that can stretch the field. Some guys that can block up front. Running back by committee, but they're contenders. I mean, they're good enough to make it in the playoffs. And once you get in the game, once you get in the tournament, anything can happen. So,
just spin it back to Syracuse before we do a final set here with Rob Konrad from the Cafe Kubal on 401 at S Salina St in Syracuse, inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. As you have this whole week of festivities with the LetterWinner of Distinction, and then giving back and having the Legend of 44, you decide to get Jim Brown's helmet and give that to Syracuse and give your helmet to Syracuse. You said your jersey's already been there, so you've already been without. Is there anything that you kept?
Well, I've had the helmet for a while, and the reality of the situation was the jersey was great. I wanted the jersey to be up in Manly because I had the Orange Bowl pat. I wanted the kids forgot for a while to me that what this place was, and I wanted them when they walked in to see FedEx Orange Bowl, Big East champs on there, and John was good enough to put it up there, and so it's been up there. The helmet I've kind of kept, but I think I think it belongs here. At the end of the day. It's but we have plenty of stuff. But I, as it relates to, if it is the last helmet, if it is the last jersey, certainly Jim's helmet, I believe it belongs to the university. And as long as you're going to use it, I'm happy to have it here. I feel like it comes home. So.
And you think? I mean, and obviously is going to create something, the beginning and the end, so that they get to walk in and see something like that. Do you, being the sponsor of the Legend of 44 running back room, how much say do you have in what design or how something is used? Do you have any say?
I think I'll have some say. Okay. I think probably the coaches are going to, limit that say to a certain degree, but thematically I think that everybody's on board, and it's not going to be anything crazy, more so than just be part of the wall, be part of the room, and a subtle reminder of and I'm going to encourage like I said before, Zonk and some of these guys to bring some stuff, pictures and whatnot back as well, because I mean it's such a great tradition at the school. I want the kids to understand and believe in what this place was.
Larry Zonk comes to Syracuse, plays fullback, goes to Miami, is successful. You come to Syracuse, play fullback, and go into the NFL, go to Miami, and have success as well. How often, or what do you say to Larry Zonk, or what's the conversation like? Do you reminisce, and do you have a relationship of saying, hey, we both did it in the same two places in a position that's not always a job that gets thanked?
Yeah, well, you got to think there's different times too. I mean, he was the main ball carrier at during those teams, and it was a different time, and so we have a relationship. Look, Larry's a different bird. He's in Alaska half the time. We both, our biggest bond is we probably have boating accidents. To tell you the truth, but no, he's been great to me. I mean, he's quite a bit. He's quite a bit older than I am, but I had a great relationship with Shula while he was still alive, and as to see, so we spent quite a bit of time. But it kind of started and ended there. I will say this though, he's a big guy. I mean, when I've been around him, I couldn't believe how big he was, and that he was a running back of that size. I mean, it's and Jim the same way. I mean, I'm a pretty big running back. And those guys were, even at an advanced age, just big guys.
I told Floyd in his 80s, I'm like, I would never want you to hit me now. And he's like, oh no. He's like, and he would come with he would get loud and then he'd get soft. But the way, like, you hung on every word he said, and he would be like, Dan, what you gotta know is you gotta get him, because when you get him, it's great. And he'd come back and forth, and I look at him, I'm like, Floyd, you can still play. He's like, oh. He's like, I'm done, Dan. He's like, I can't get out there. I was like, Floyd, look at you. There's no part of you that ever got older than probably older than 44 years old. I mean, he always looked young, spry, healthy in his face. He was just like a natural-born killer, but just a good man.
His great man. His energy was second to none. And I will say, when they had the retirement ceremony for 44, I ran out first. I just retired, and I could barely walk at the time, so I gingerly walk out. And so they named, called Floyd's name. Floyd has his jersey on, smile ear to ear, and literally dead sprints out to the middle of the field. And I think I was standing next to Jim. We just looked at each other. We're like, I mean, we both said we wish we had his energy. I mean, he was such a special guy, and I'll never forget. I mean, that'll be my lasting memory of him. It's just his positivity and his energy and his just joy for the game and for the university. I mean, he loved this place.
They come from Rob Conrad. We're going to play a thing called Rapid Fire. You've been great about answering my questions, so I'm not going to put you on the hot seat, but you get to put me on the hot seat. 3 questions, can be football, can be literally anything in the world. I have to answer them live.
Oh, boy. All right. Let's see. Who's your favorite team in the AFC East?
Right now?
Yes, right now.
Growing up as a kid, it was Miami because of you and Marino and OJ McDuffie, and there was so you in your connection to Syracuse,
yeah.
Marino, because he was Marino, and he wore my grandfather's number 13. And I don't know why, but I just took to OJ McDuffie, and if anybody gave me an OJ McDuffie card, it was like I was getting gold. So I always loved OJ, and I don't know, there was something about that team.
Yeah.
Right now, I would say I'm really happy Miami's playing well, because I'll always have a soft spot, and I'm happy for the people of Buffalo. I also accurately predicted the first 4 picks of the Jets this year, and I was like, so I'm a teal green Jaguar, but I'm forest green, like literally calling everybody that they're going to draft, and I was like, what the hell's going on that I just know the Jets' brain right now? But so you can realize in my answer to your question, there's 4 teams in the AFC East, and I refuse to talk about the other one. I will on my broadcast, but
and
whatever.
And Josh Allen, the Bills are
incredible.
They're doing a great job, and he's a great kid.
He's a good running quarterback, and he never got that respect at Wyoming. I saw that man run for 8 carries, 100 yards against my Jaguars, and that was the game where Leonard Fournette, as a running back, decided to punch someone's helmet because you don't need your hands to run the ball, apparently. and Jalen Ramsey, I have a video that went crazy on Twitter where the fans were screaming at him, and he went over to them, and he was like, "Give me more." Like, he wanted more hate. And so that was an interesting time because the fans booed louder, and he got happier.
All right. Talk to me about, I didn't know you covered the Jags.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So how it happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was working at ESPN 1080, the team in Orlando at the time, right by the airport. I think they might be CBS now or whatever, but they were ESPN at the time, and I really wanted to cover the Jaguars, and one of the guys that works out there that had a show out there at the time, Jerry O'Neill, he put in a good word for me and wrote a letter over and said, "Hey, looking to get a credential," and I got a credential. And ever since I got it, I've never let go of it. It's the longest credential I've had. It's 12 years. And I do all their home games. When they made the playoffs and were just outside of the Super Bowl, I went all the way to Foxborough. And the organization is incredible. The people are great. I love being in the locker room and getting to talk with these guys. I respect the team. And I started right after Fred had left.
Okay.
And that broke my heart. So I've never talked to Fred, but I hope to. I would love that. But I mean, I've been in the room. I've talked to Mark Brunell, Tony Baselli walking by you. Chris Berman was in there when they got to talk to Boom. So, I mean, Jacksonville's opened so many doors, but really, it's just a phenomenal organization of really good people that always get back to you, that other places could learn from. It's just human resources and kindness and guest service. But yeah, it's a great organization, and I had never been to an NFL game until I covered the Jaguars. So my first experience of an NFL game was to go to the game for free, sit in the press box, have free parking, get fed, and then after watching my first NFL game of my favorite NFL team, going into the locker room with the guys whose cards I collected and interviewing them. That was my first NFL game. So I didn't even sit in the stands. I sat in the press box and so spoiled. And I was just down in Jacksonville recently, and they're trying really hard. And Andre Cisco from Syracuse is doing some good stuff. But
I'll make you a deal, and we'll cut this portion off. Okay. You get Rob Drummond, okay, on film to mention that I am not only a better looking guy, but a better ball player. And I'll get you an interview with Fred Taylor.
Hold on. Hold on. Let's see this. Let's see this right now. Oops. All right. Let's see.
This is live video, live radio, people. This is how life works. Let's see. See if I can wheel and deal this morning. Might be running around. Let's see where he's at. What's up, Drum? How you doing? Good. So I'm on air right now, live with Rob Konrad. Okay. So I'm gonna put you on speaker. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So Rob Drummond, folks, you can see on my phone. So Rob is on right now. Rob Konrad said, you know that Fred Taylor is my favorite Jaguar ever, right? So Rob Konrad said, and I quote, that if you will publicly say that he's a better looking running back than you, or better looking back than you ever were, then that he will get me an interview with Fred Taylor.
What's up, Rob?
What's going on, Rob?
So I want to put you toward the mic over here. So will you say he's pretty so I can talk to Fred Taylor?
Ooh, I would say Rob's good looking.
What do you say?
I know Rob, Conrad's good looking. All right, that's my brother, man. That's my favorite.
Yeah. So will you say he's prettier than you so I can interview Fred Taylor?
Ooh. I'll tell you what, we'll call it a draw. We'll call it a draw.
I love you both.
We love you too.
Anything that makes you both happy, you know.
All right.
Well, we love you too, and Rob, I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at Rob Conrad's phone. He's got Fred Taylor's number up on the phone right now. I'm about to pass out. So, but it's
All right. So, Robbie owes you one, buddy. So
yeah, I owe you one. Yeah.
All right, pal.
All right, brother. I love you. Good to hear you too. We look forward to seeing you soon. We love you. All right, man. Take care. See you. All right.
There you go.
Drum said you're a very pretty person. There you go.
You know, it's yeah, it's funny.
He doesn't say things he doesn't believe. So.
It's great. We used to train when I was in college. We come back and geez, I think Dorsey was here, Dorsey Levins at sometimes, and we actually learned a lot about the game from him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and he will help literally anybody. That man has no ego.
Yep.
So, awesome person. Well, with that being said, Rob Konrad being honored as the letter winner of distinction, an extremely high honor, the highest of at Syracuse University, and the sponsor of the Legend of 44 running back room that's coming to Syracuse in the not too distant future with the first of the 44 line there, the Jim Brown helmet, and the last with Rob Konrad's. He's given back consistently to this university, comes back here, shows love, has a box even when he can't make it. So you can come to the game and buy a $20 ticket when this man is loaning out the box to people. So make sure you come out here, support the Orange. Thank.com's homepage. And of course, once we go live, you can find us on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And you can ask Alexa and your Google Home devices to play our latest episode. We'll do that as well. Many thanks to Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Witty Wicks, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Chick-fil-A Clay, Honda City of Liverpool, Chick-fil-A Watertown, as well as Mother's Cupboard. And we are the proud exclusive multimedia marketing partner of Lemoyne College and the Dolphins, and Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse and their Bobcats. Final word?
Great to see you, bud. Excited about this weekend.
Absolutely. We'll see you at the Dome, and we look forward to seeing another sellout crowd rock the Dome and remind Notre Dame why they don't come here. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you.